actual thin points and issues in some of the relationships in between the inter-industrial bodies, like a developer and the publisher. And hopefully this video will help a lot of you to understand why some of the things happen, why censorship happens, like why the whole system is currently not perfect and allows a lot of potential spaces where something can go wrong. And well, it's just in general informative. It's a general pipeline of contract in between publisher and developer and the game being developed. Number of red hot issues, things that you need to put attention to being a developer in 6 segments, which are contractual issues in general, supervision from publisher part issues, marketing model issues and relationship and management, general business development, platform and distribution. I also have prepared this little systematic problem that a lot of companies have at this point in between supervision and marketing model that hopefully will again help you understand why games get changed, why the pipeline is structured the way it's structured, why we have a lot of legacy issues, and hopefully, personally from my side, will help some people to understand that most of the issues we're currently having are in fact not market or not people problem. It's more or less a number of problems that got together into a systemic crisis in the industry, mostly in relationships, production and structure. And we really need to start put our attention to it. So, publisher and developer go into the contract, which may happen at the different stages of the development of the game from the developer end. My only comment here is that, as a general rule, the further down the line and with more leverage you get signed with the publisher, the better for you, because you will be able to avoid, if not most, but some of those things that we have on this chart to discuss. So don't be in a rush. I know a lot of people think that the dream scenario is to sign something based on a concept, but it really opens you to a lot of changes and criticism and potential issues again. But let's presume that at some stage, at the stage of, let's say, demo of a vertical slice, or maybe developer went a little bit ahead and closer to an alpha, developer signs a contract with the publisher. What is the contract with the publisher and developer? It consists from 6 large elements, the major of which is a licensing of the game for the specific platforms to be distributed by the publisher when the game is done, with some revenue share being set in between the publisher and developer. Publisher and developer revenue shares are different. For a very, very long time, if again you're not aware, it used to be around 70-30, 70 to publisher, 30% to developer, but with the change of time, it kind of changed to more of a 50-50 logic. But still, if this is a very big sizable budget, developer still somewhere along 30% lines. For this revenue share, publisher obliges to provide developer with the capability of developing this game with distribution capabilities. So publisher basically says that we will help you to put to all of the distribution channels, all of the platforms, we'll make all of the arrangements for you, we'll make sure that the game will be at all of the, let's say it's a console game, to all the console stores. We will also produce the retail version of it, physical copies, like all that shit. It also obliges to provide developer with the financial means, if necessary, to finish the game, which is typically called advance versus royalty, and it works in a way where if you need a 3 million budget to finish the game from the current state, you will be provided with this 3 million, but you need to keep in mind that this money is called advance versus royalty for a simple reason, because they will be deducted from the future sales, and only after that revenue share will come into the full power. Marketing commitments, which are important for our today's conversation, because from my point of view, a lot of issues we're currently seeing going on around the games, around the DIY issues, around the censorship, around the ratings, they are somewhat connected with non-efficiency of the overall marketing effort and an attempt of people to substitute some of the non-working mechanisms in PR, performance marketing that went too expensive, and community work with new type of alluring messages in people's opinion, to increase the audiences, and that doesn't work. And this is definitely in marketing department, and we would be talking about that today. Publisher also obliges to provide developer with all of the necessary support in the form of different type of effort multiplication, connections with the bunch of inter-industrial bodies, shows visits, meeting with people, interviews, dinners. If you need a QA company, they probably have a good QA company for you. If you need a localization company, they probably have a localization company. Basically, this is sold like an idea that publisher is on the market for a very long time. They have existing relationship and a lot of opportunities that they can bring to you. They will make the process more effective. And IP management as well, which is potentially other projects. Not mandatory, but sometimes it's again a part of the sales pitch of the publisher on their offer and the proposal at the market, that will make not just one game, will make a trilogy, will also make a bunch of books and cross-media products also hang out with us. It will become the movie one day. It happens. Some of people have that. And IP management in general is an interesting element. You need to pay a lot of attention, because this conversation is typically an opener to whom rights belong, in what capacity, how they can be managed, and there's a whole bunch of very important questions that doesn't look to be important when you look at the contract first. Some of them, like who has the right to produce and distribute merchandise, and what's the revenue share in the merchandise. Most of the publisher's contract, that would be 100% the publisher, and they would be insisting on IP belong to them. And in my opinion, again, that's something that you should never sell, you should never sign. IP and intellectual property is the long-term asset you're building, and no one knows if it will become successful. And giving it away is, you can do it only if you have another one which you think is better, and you're using this current IP you have to solidify some of the relationships and bring in the stability into development, and your plan is more multi-factor that you basically letting other people know. But in general, even that is not cool, because you don't know. IP rights is something that every developer should try to keep to themselves, or at least when you are discussing ways of that to be managed or limited licensing for a very long time, you need to try to get as much as possible for it. Like it's your mandatory and primary goal is to preserve long-term assets to your studio, because in form of any success, if you don't have them, you would not be able to raise any funds and money, because like short-term assets like liquidity is not really qualifies as anything interested for private equity and for a lot of VCs as well, if you want to go this way later or operate your own pipeline. But again, when the contract's signed, we have things rolling. We have developments kicking off at the developer side, and let's qualify it as a linear development, which means that you start going through alpha and beta, and at this stage it's still not exposed to the general public. And this is one of the interesting moments as well, because if you work with the publisher, it typically means that the marketing department over here will insist to make the company more compact and more efficient, and start talking about the game, let's say 6 months before the actual release, or at least do it extensively. On some occasions it would be aligned with other activities of the publishing house, but again, in most of the cases there will be a period where you just develop the game, or maybe it just barely announced as a fact of the game being inside. Here is this going on. Those companies got into relationships, but there is no actual marketing campaign. And development cycle is purely dedicated to the development of the game at the developer's end. Then there is a stage which also includes marketing, public exposure. This is where active stage marketing and messaging supervision from the publisher kicks in as well. And this is where you will be developing game as a developer, and at the same time you would be making a lot of activities to support marketing effort, including producing materials, participating in interviews, going to a variety of shows, and following the marketing plan in general. It also goes with the development together, and so developing and marketing, now you're getting to the point of release. You get game released to all of the platforms, and you then move into sales and the operations. Contract is concluded over the time of licensing of the game. It typically presumes the support stage of the game for some years, depending from the contract, and then it can be renewed or not renewed over the time of expiration. Or if you want to make a second part, it was not part of the first contract, you make another contract. Now, this is what's happening on the side of a developer. What's happening at the side of the publisher? Again, support tries to move into effort multiplication. Also, keep in mind that when you start building anything as a developer with the publisher, like in multiple other relationships, when it begins, it's all great. It tends to, every beginning of collaboration tends to be this flower and candy stage, where everyone tries to make a best impression, everyone tries to make a best effort, and unfortunately it's on the later stages where issues start to happen. And you need to keep your head cool and be pragmatic over this, because if you will buy this initial good impression stuff and you would not pragmatically secure some of the provisional elements in the contract, you can really put yourself in a bad position for one simple reason, because whatever great partner you have, you need to constantly keep in mind one thing: who has more leverage? Like, who are those are the relationships, and this is a contract you're signing you can safely seize at any moment without being damaged and not even spoiling the relationship with everyone. Could you do that? Will you be fine without this money keep on going stages per stage? Will you be fine without this marketing? Can you switch to other opportunities? If yes, then, well, I mean, it's not, a lot of the things that I'm talking about are not that important, but again, unfortunately, in many instances, you will be dependent from the publisher, dependent on multiple stages, and the better contract you sign, the better be the way or potential clean cut if there is an issue. But again, coming up to what marketing does. Marketing provides general supervision and planning, working with the developer at the development stage before the marketing public exposure. Gets into the active stage with marketing and overall messaging supervision for when the marketing for public exposure happened at the release time, and then at sales operation. Maybe we'll talk about that because that's a part of an issue with the current marketing at the publisher side as well. And switches to support activities like this support stage of marketing for when game is out. Publisher also participates into relationship management for you. Now, in some sense, it operates like a partner in the best form, introduces you to the whole bunch of people, gets you to a bunch of places, secures slots at the shows, at the booth mostly, and in most part at the publisher representation booth. And publisher manager will participate at the marketing side, where you're meeting people, and publishing founders in your contact will participate at meeting with external partners. So there's definitely an element of relationship management, and also, just saying this in advance, an element you need to be super careful about. We'll talk about it. On the general business development part, it's very typical for publishing houses to have an overall across the board efforts that contributes all of the partners of the development side, organize internal trainings and seminars and people get-togethers and kind of mixers and stuff, and maybe get you to some unexpected venues like a product placement opportunity, stuff like that, right? It's something you don't expect typically. I mean, if this is a good business development, not just mere sales, just additional elements that can contribute to game, that can bring in more money for both publisher and yourself, and more opportunities, and maybe expand the audience. But again, things you should be really careful about, because you, in a lot of the things I will be telling as issues, as potential issues, there is this element which is effectively you need to keep by yourself an ability to refuse anything which is pushed at your head. It's very important. It sounds obvious, but when you are into commercial relationships and people also talk stuff like we're actually here like one family, this is a sign of the goodwill and stuff, a lot of people just kind of tend to lose it and stop analyzing stuff, and they just buy things emotionally, which I would not suggest you do. But general business development, platform relationship, distribution management, retail partners, and so on, an extremely important element, and this will be on the roll for the whole of the project. And everything qualifies here, like for good timing on Steam, participation at platform activities, promotion of the Steam page, participation at the different demo fests, a level of advertisement at the Sony PlayStation Store, and the Game Pass opportunities, maybe like everything that platforms and distributors can propose from their end. It qualifies at this specific parts. I would say that, and this is like my opinion only, well, not my only, but my opinion exclusively, a lot of people think that way as well. This is the core publisher function. Securing the distribution and securing an effective marketing are two things which are kind of mandatory, and this is what should be of the most interest for you, because everything else is something that can be done in other places. Like all of the other things are additional and not integral. Distribution and marketing is something, it has to be your major points in decision of what publisher you're choosing, really. So those things going on. Other projects potentially is my form of etc. coming on from the IP management. Like I said, a good publisher may qualify you to make a movie at Netflix and whatever, I don't know, stuff, additional things. Additional things can sometimes be deciding factor for if you go with this or other publisher in general, but there are multiple. I'm just having this point to have it marked.